going on, guys? Welcome back to episode 3. Last time we went over bending some of the material, getting it on the jig table, getting everything laid out. Now we're going to finish up on the jig table today, get everything tacked together, move it over to the big jig so that we can get it all burned in. That's where we're going to get on the back end. Let's go. Alright guys, so we're going to get into the actual part of cutting and start getting the frame together. So I have it kind of laid out how I want to do it. What I'll do is take this, once I have these two coped or fish-mouthed together where I want them, just like that. I won't tack them into place yet because I want to have everything cut. It's a lot easier to be able to cut one piece than when they're stuck together. I will take this, and I do like to trace everything out on the table. I'm going to put this where I need it. Once I have this tube where I need it, top and bottom, down here, you're going to want to make sure that where your bottom tube is running, that you can cut this at an angle and you have enough. I will come up here, I'll stand directly above it, and I will draw a line from this side of the tube to this side of the tube, and that's going to tell me the angle that I need to cut it, so you can see there. Okay, then I'm going to trace it down onto the table, and as you can see here, what it's done now is it's run that tube through. It's also going to show me where here I can cut it. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to take here to here, and I'll draw a line, and this, you'll have to do some fine tuning on that, but you'll be able to get where you need to be. And then on the table, you can see where you're cutting from here to here. This is all getting eliminated. And that tube will come down, and you'll tack that together. You won't weld it completely in, you'll just tack it. So that'll be there, that'll be there. And then we'll run our bottom tube, which will just go here, and you're going to do the same thing. You're going to take that tube, once you figure out where you need to be, and you can see that we've got all this back here, so I'll just cut it so that I don't need all this tube just getting in my way. Alright, so I made really quick work of cutting these tubes out. They're not perfect. They're not gonna be, but now we're gonna take the flap wheel and the grinding disc, and this is where we'll fine tune everything. We'll get all the edges straightened out, because you want to make sure that this isn't concaved or it isn't going to lay flush. So we're going to work on that. And you also want to make sure, and one of the things you run into is when you're cutting this, if you're cutting one side this way and then you go cut the other end, did you cut the other end exactly the same on each side? So you may have to work that in too, and you really won't know until you go put it up to the frame whether it's actually okay. Guys, now we have basically a puzzle. So I'll kind of go through what I'll do here. So I'm going to take my head tube, I'm going to lock it in. Get it roughly where you need it. Doesn't have to be perfect. Just get it to where that head tube's locked in. So we're going to go with our first tube here. We just want to make sure that everything's going on. Everything's going to line up, that I'm not running into any issues. Any more trimming. I've already gone through. Did a lot of trimming. It helps if you get some of these magnets. It can hold things on the table for you. Probably the biggest issue is that they collect metal. Metal gets stuck to them. So there's that one. Run. Just like that. Alright, so now you can see the frame lays itself out. You can actually go ahead and see what I mean when we're talking about getting your gaps on. So you want all that nice and tight. your cope nice and tight in there. This is where you'll want to tack weld everything down. If you have a table that you can run some type of a bar through, some type of metal bar that will hold this down while you're tack welding it, that's ideal. I don't have one, but if you could run some clamps, a metal piece across here, a metal piece across here, and be able to clamp it down, that is definitely ideal for you. Alright, so now we're going to go ahead and lock this into the actual jig itself. You've got your head tube holder. This will help keep everything in line and locked into place. Metal likes to move when you heat it up. So we're going to place this here. You see that slides right down in there. This will go down in there. Slides right in. That's what's holding your head tube in. Right? I don't tighten it down yet. I like to want to make sure that everything is level from here. My table is level. I make sure that the jig is level both ways. This way, this way. So I lay it on there. Looks to be just about. Just need to come up a little. Actually, I'll probably leave it right there. It's almost level. I use a lot of triple trees on my frames, which gives you that extra adjustment. Now you want to go ahead and completely lock this in nice and tight. What I'll do is lock the head tube first. It's locked in. Then I will lock the bottom in once I make sure that the frame is straight. I'll put that on there. It's straight up and down. I do kind of give it an eyeball a little bit just to make sure that I'm going straight down the center of the jig, and then I'll lock it in there. Now this is just for me to go ahead and burn this in and finish weld this so that I can grind this all clean. Once this is welded, take it back out after it cools down, take it back to the jig table, grind all your welds down, make all these corners look pretty. I try to stay away from grinding in the center sections. That's where your strength is. So I like to leave that alone. But I'm going to go ahead, get the head tube welded on, get these joints welded together. Then we'll go clean it up. Once we clean it up, then we're going to figure out, I do like to drill holes into the frame where I'm going to put the back legs. You can cope it and rest it up against there if you don't have the ability to drill the holes. Not a big deal. I did it for years. But with me having the hole cutter, I like to drill right directly through it with 1-inch holes so that when I bend my legs, they actually go inside the frame, and then I'm welding around it just to give it a little bit more support. I never had any issues just coping it and holding it there. But now that I have the tools to do it the other way, that's how I do it. So let me get this finished welded up, and then we'll go on to the next step. Okay, we're going to let it sit in here and cool down. You can see all I did was basically just weld that down, weld that in there. There, that's welded. Head tube's welded. That's probably the most important one. Make sure you get that in. I am not a professional welder, by the way. I am all self-taught. So we're going to leave this in the jig for a little bit. And what that's going to do is allow it to not get warped once I take it out. It's sitting in here, it's locked down there, it's locked up there. So let it sit, let it cool down, then we'll pull it off and grind it down. All right guys, we're moving right along now. As you can see, I got the frame, it's cooled down. I got it laying down on the jig table. I'm gonna go ahead and start grinding. I like to put a new flap disc on there just to make it easier, or you spend a lot of time in one spot. Be careful because you can really gouge the metal, and if you're just going to do powder coating, it's kind of hard to hide that stuff. You're not doing body work, so be careful grinding and really getting into the metal. I believe this is an 80 grit. which seems to not gouge it as bad. It just doesn't take off metal as fast either. So if you went to like a 40, you could probably knock it down quicker. I do stay away from the head tube other than getting some of the slag off of there. I don't grind the welds off the head tube. Just that's a structural area. You really don't know how far down you go if you're grinding, and you don't want that to get too thin. This metal is already not really that thick. So I'm going to get to grinding, and then once the grinding is done, it'll be time to go ahead and get the holes in it and figure out what we're going to do for the seat post. Probably going to run a seat post off the back of this. I'll do a hole here, seat post, the seat will sit there. And we're going to go from there, see what we got. Let's go. All right, guys, we got us a center section. So next, if you want to add a center tank bar, this is the time to do it. You want to do it while your frame is able to lay flat on the table. You're going to do it just like you built the frame. You're going to notch it. You're going to do what kind of curves you want. Whatever you like, this is the time to do that. I also got my bottom bracket lined up to where the center of the bottom bracket will be. So when I cut the hole for it, I am going to use my tubing notcher to do so. You can do this however you want, but you kind of want how I do it. Center of the bottom bracket is about 6.5 inches from the top of the tube. This allows your pedal to sit roughly right at the same line as your tube here, so you're not hitting it on the street. On this frame, I am going to run a front to back tube. So leg will be running front to back. Seat's going to come out of here, sit roughly right about there. And then we're going to do a bottom tube coming up. So I need to do holes here, hole here, probably another hole in here somewhere, because I need to put you want to put something to help stiffen up this bar, because it can't just be welded to here and welded to the back. So that should be, we'll do that on next episode. Like and subscribe, please. I only get 15 minutes of video time, so this is taking a little bit longer than it should. And I'd like to be able to share more with you at one time. So like, subscribe, tell your friends, all your friends, share it. Follow me on Instagram, Seabert Customs. All right, love, thank you.